So this video is about active transport. So there's two types of transport across membranes. There's passive transport and active transport. Now, passive transport requires no energy and the movement of the molecules is down the concentration gradient. So you can see up here we've got lots and lots of these little purple molecules. So we could say that's got a high concentration of the purple molecules, and down here we have a low concentration. So passive transport is the movement of the molecules along or down the concentration gradient from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. And because it's going down the concentration gradient, it requires no energy. Active transport, on the other hand, requires energy, and it requires energy from ATP. And so the ATP is used to as the fuel for active transport. Why does it require energy? Well, because it's moving the molecules against the concentration gradient. So you can see here we've got only a couple of these little diamond-shaped molecules on this side. So we've got a low concentration on this side. And on this side of the membrane, we've got a high concentration, but yet, so we've got a high concentration here, but yet you can see the active transport is moving more and more of the molecules onto the high concentration side. So it's moving the molecules against the concentration gradient, and therefore it requires energy. So why would it need to do that? Well, a number of different reasons. One of the mechanisms is by using something called an ion pump. The ion pump is actually made of a protein, so sometimes it might be called a protein pump. So this thing that you see here is a protein, and it's an integral protein because it's embedded in the membrane and goes all the way through the membrane. So it's a protein and it acts like a pump. So you can see, if you have a look at this picture here, this is the ATP, the energy. So this is the ATP molecule. When it goes in to the protein here, it changes the shape of the protein. So the energy is used to change the shape of the protein to deliver the molecules on that side. So there's a number of reasons why a cell needs to use active transport with ion pumps. One reason is to maintain homeostasis, to ensure that there's the right concentration of ions on either side of the membrane. You remember, homeostasis is the process of maintaining a constant internal environment. So there's a requirement for a certain concentration on either side of the membrane, and it can't rely purely on the process of diffusion for that to occur. Sometimes they need to actually pump the ions through to get the concentration that's required. Now, of course, as you know, that things like sodium, and particularly sodium, is important for water balance. So another way to maintain the water balance of cells is by actually moving the ions around, so you don't have to rely on osmosis. And another reason might be for the transport of other molecules. For example, when sodium moves across a membrane, it can take glucose with it. So glucose is an example of a molecule that moves across in a process called co-transport. So there's another mechanism of active transport that's important when the molecules are too big, so for very large molecules, and also for when there's a large volume of molecules. So it's ideal for large molecules and also for large amounts as well. And this is a process called cytosis. There's two different types. There's endocytosis and there's exocytosis. Endo means in, so it's when molecules are moving into the cell. And exo means out, so it's a process when the molecules are moving out of the cell. So let's look at endocytosis first of all. This here is an example of a phagocyte, and so this process is called phagocytosis. Now, so phago means to eat, cyte, cell, so it means cell eating. And you can see here, this is the phagocyte cell, and it is eating this foreign cell here that looks a lot like a virus, probably even a coronavirus. And as you can see, the membrane of the phagocyte cell actually wraps around the foreign cell, and then the next step is it comes down, completely encases the foreign material into a thing here that we call a vesicle. Now, if we were to zoom in on what the membrane looks like, you'll see that it's actually a phospholipid bilayer, because it's actually part of the cell membrane that is sort of wrapped around itself, connected and sort of broken off. So that's a way of getting large objects, large molecules and even cells into a cell through a process called endocytosis, endo for in. And also I want to show you an example of exocytosis. Now, exo meaning out, so this is exocytosis. And this example here is at a synapse between two nerves. So this is a neuron here, and then this is a neuron here, and the gap between the two is called a synapse. And what communicates between the two sides of the synapse is actually things called neurotransmitters, so little chemicals, and they go up to the synapse in vesicles again, in these little vesicles, and then are released. So you can see that the membrane of the vesicle then joins onto the cell membrane, and it releases the neurotransmitter. So that is exocytosis, because it's an example of molecules exiting the cell.